Welcome back to the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft podcast. My name's Chris Spear, and I'm going to be your guide to enjoying the great outdoors. So I'm feeling a little bit better this week. Last week I was, I didn't even think I was going to get an episode out, but I did. So today we're going to kick off into the chapter water, and we've done this before at a 35,000 foot overview. We did the whole chapter in one episode, but this time we're going to break down all the different aspects of this water in a week by week basis. And so now I got some embarrassing stuff to say is that I did this whole episode a while ago and forgot to hit record on the camera. So, oh, well, silly me. But anyway, let's get to it. So we're not always going to have clean water sources with us whenever we get out into the woods. It's just not going to happen. And it weighs way too much to carry. And that's one of the things about being able to drink out of a river or lake or stream or some aspect of some place, and depending on where your location is. Being here in South Mississippi, we got rivers, lakes, ponds, mud puddles. Being up in the north, you got probably frozen ice and snow, and you have to melt that stuff and stuff like that to get some stuff to drink whenever you're out in the great outdoors. Now, I'm not going to go in deep detail about finding your water, because if you're going camping and you're practicing bushcraft and all that, you know how to find your water. You should know where to find water. So this ain't a survival aspect as much as it is just making sure you stay safe when you're out into the great outdoors. Now, one of the main things, you found your water source, you have a creek, you have a river, you have a lake, you have something like that. The biggest and most important aspect of making this water drinkable is the danger of, protozoas and bacterias and viruses. Now, protozoas are Cryptosporidium and Giardia, and they're a biological contaminant that they make you sick. They really do. They will make you sick. If you ever seen that TV show on Netflix, it's called Outlast. And this is one of the most recent examples of what I'm talking about, is that there was a lady on there that she was one of the survivalists, one of the contestants on there. She left one camp, was going to walk around the lake that they were on, and meet up with one of the other camps and join their team. Okay. So, I mean, it's a total different dynamic. You have to watch it, But so what happened is she was walking around. It was a 12-kilometer hike, something to that effect. And she was trying to get there before dark. And, she was thirsty. She didn't bring any gear with her or anything like that. And she saw water coming out of the rocks, out of the moss, off of the bank, coming down the hill. And she's like, oh, man, that's got to be filtered. It's got to be good. I am just going bottoms up. And she did. And she drank it. Now, the problem with that was it didn't affect her right away. It's not going to affect you right away. But several days later, she got extremely sick. Massive diarrhea, vomiting, stuff like that, and from the Cryptosporidium or the Giardia, which most times is Giardia, which is another name of beaver fever. And it is a thing called giardiasis. And that's not giardiasis, and it's a bunch of Giardia. And it's where you get sick as a dog. You do. And you can get dehydrated real quick. You can't keep enough because you're all constantly diarrheaing it out, and you got it coming out of both ends. So this stuff is nasty, and it is one of the most common waterborne illnesses here in the United States. And so I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I do know here in the United States, Canada, it is one of the most nastiest things that we got in the water. Yeah, I can't say nastiest, but it is one of the things in there that's dangerous, So this the stuff that I listed in the book is not an exhaustive list of everything that you can catch, but it does, any of these will cause horrible health symptoms such as gastroenteritis, severe cramping, abdominal pain, dehydration, diarrhea, and each of them can last a few days to several weeks. An extreme case of diarrhea could lead to dehydration, and the last thing that you want when you're wandering the woods, because you don't want to be running around through the woods and can't keep your pants up, because you happen to, you're pooing and throwing up and all that good stuff. So, but even scarier than that is the viruses. Viruses are extremely scary, but they're not as big of a health risk as the other ones, the protozoas or the bacteria. Now, bacteria will knock you out, and it's E. coli and stuff like that. Now, mentioning bacteria, Clay Hayes did a video on YouTube, a whole series, several videos in a row, where he, if you don't know who Clay Hayes is, he's one of the winners of the Alone TV show, and he did a video on the gypsy whales and the Arctic coyote whales, and then he did water filtration. He took some straight out of a swamp or a bog, and he took all these water samples and he sent them off to the lab. Then he took boiled water, sent it to the lab. Then he took filtered water that he filtered to the lab, and it was come back and it had either some of it had some E. coli present, no E. coli present, or I wouldn't touch it because it had so much E. coli present. And, but interestingly enough, he did the gypsy whale or coyote whale, because a lot of people's like, hey, you can't say gypsy. And I was like, buddy, I can say whatever I want. Toodaloo. I can say whatever I want. I don't care if it offends you. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Anyway, the the gypsy whale or coyote whale is a hole dug 3 to 4 feet away from a water source. And if it's real sandy, you're going to dig it about 8 feet away from your water source. And you're going to dig down way below the water line, the water level of whatever water source you have. And I have that outlined here in the book. We're going to get into it in a couple weeks or so. But that water will filter through the gravel, the sand, the dirt, and everything naturally, and actually clean the water out and make it safe for you to drink. And people's like, oh, dude, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. You're going to get sick and die. Hello, 90% of all the water in the United States comes from water wells that people dig and pump out and drink. 90%. It could be a little less than 90, it could be more than 90. I'm just throwing that number out there. But I'm telling you, all the city water comes from a lake or a river. All right. And all they do is just pump it out, and then they get all the dirt and crud out of it, and then load it down with so many chemicals that's going to give everybody cancer. And then half of these water bottles you buy from the store are just the tap water that you just could have bought it from the city for cheaper than the tap water bottle. I mean, for the water bottle. And yeah, it's people are so ignorant. It is beyond belief how ignorant people can be. Like, they don't know. And, so they get on to me saying, you can't drink water that way. I'm like, dude, they've been doing this since before Jesus. I mean, Abraham and Jacob and Isaac and, all these guys, they dug wells and they dug whales, Jacob's well. I mean, really? All these wells were dug into the dirt, and they drank the water that seeped into the hole. That's what a well is. And it's clean. And it filtrates through all the sand and all the dirt, and it gets out all the bacteria and all the nasty. And it actually tastes very good, and it has plenty of minerals in it, and it's better for you than any of this garbage that you get at the store. And, water wells are actually very good. So, but anyway, getting into the gypsy wells, and he was taking these samples, sending them off, and when he got his lab results back, it came that the one well that I knew would probably have just a little bit of E. coli in there had zero traces, and that was the Coyote well. And I was like, this is crazy. And I've been drinking like that all my life. Like I'd go camping and I would dig a hole right next to the river or a hole right next to the creek, or, and I'd dig down, about 3 feet, something like that, till it started filling up with water. And you let it sit. And when you let it sit, all the floaties and all the, the turbidity is going to drop, and the sediment is going to drop, and you're going to have clear water. I mean, crystal clear water. And you can drink that water straight out of that hole, and it will not get you sick. If it does get you sick, then you did right where somebody peed or somebody pooed or something like that. But even in that case, I don't think so, because you dug it up and ridded it, all the dirt. But another aspect of water is going to be rainwater. That is going to be safe to drink. Rainwater is another thing that a lot of people argue with me about, that you cannot drink the rainwater, man. They got chemtrails, man, and we're all going to die. I'm like, dude, really? If they have forever chemicals, that's what they keep telling me. They're like, you got forever chemicals in the rainwater, man. If forever chemicals were in the rainwater, then every drop of water you ever drink on the planet Earth would be contaminated. I mean, think about it. What refreshes the water? You got the snow, which is water. You got most of your water comes from the oceans, and then it evaporates out of the oceans. It flies over to wherever it's going to do, and then it dumps in the form of rain. And then you got the rain, they got the floods, you got the runoff, everything, all the nasty and the water and everything goes into the water and goes right back out into the ocean. And then it's just a big old recycle thing, and it just constantly recycles. So rainwater is safe to drink. You do not have to boil the rainwater. It's going to have less to no chemical, biologicals, or I mean, not chemical, but biological contaminants in the water. It's safe to drink. I've been on camping trips several times where rainwater was the only water we had to drink, and I've never been sick. I haven't gotten sick, and I don't have cancer yet. No, let's see, God willing, I don't, but rainwater does not have the biological contaminants that groundwater has. The big difference between rainwater and groundwater is that rainwater tastes different from water from the stream or lakes, because it evaporates out, and then it leaves all the minerals behind. So it's kind of like distilling. You're doing a distillation, or whatever you want to call it. I forget how you pronounce these words, but you're distilling it. You're boiling the water out. All the steam goes through a tube, and then it gets cooled, and then it returns back into water, and then drips into another container, and it leaves all the chemical contaminants in one pot, or the salt from salt water in one pot. And then, either way, that's how you can actually make drinkable water, and by doing that. And that's what they have, distilled water. That's what distilled water is they just boiled nasty water in one pot, and they collected clean 100% clean water in another. So, and you can make it, there's actually I've seen on Temu, TMU, that you could buy a still off of there for like $100, a couple $100. And you could set that up in your kitchen and distill water. And you could distill water if there was an event that happened, a hurricane storm, natural disaster, something like that. You had access to the water, but you didn't have access to make it clean, which everybody does if you have a way to boil it, But let's say you got seawater, and that's the only water you got. You can fill that puppy up, and you can go ahead and distill that water, and it desalinates that water, and it leaves the salt in the can, and it allows you to collect the fresh water out of it, and then you can take the salt and you put the salt up and use the salt for something else later. But, getting back to the water and getting back to the nasties of the water, the reason why we boil the water, and I've harped on boiling your water ever since I started this book, ever since I started this podcast. Anytime I talk about water, boil your water, boil your water, BOIL your water. And the reason why is because that's the easiest, it's the most surefire way to make sure that you are not getting any kind of chemical, not chemical, but biological contaminants. Now that I said that, you're boiling your water is not going to rid you of any kind of your chemical contaminants. And anybody that'll tell you otherwise, other than being distilled is wrong. So now, as mentioned in the gear section, filtering and purifying water are different processes. And that's some things that people they use interchangeably, I believe. And, filtering your water removes all the sediment. It gets rid of all the grit and the grime and all the tadpoles and bugs, and, which sometimes that ain't bad. Protein's good for you, but, purifying your water makes the water safe by removing the biological pathogens and all the chemical contaminants. So, all right, now let's break that down, because I just said that boiling your water is not going to get rid of the chemical contaminants, and it's not. What they're talking about, or what I'm talking about here in this book, is whenever you're using a water filter, which we're going to get to later on in the coming weeks. But if you're using a commercial water filter, it will remove some of the chemical contaminants, if not all of them. And those chemical contaminants are, it could be your forever chemicals or gas or, fertilizer, or, heavy metals and, stuff like that. It'll take it out. But chemical contaminants are different from biological pathogens, in that chemicals are present in the water due from runoff and flooding. So, for example, a farmer sprays his crops with pesticides, and then the rain washes the pesticides off the crops. The water collects and runs into a stream, and then that stream is transported to the rivers and so forth. Chemical contaminants are more challenging to eliminate than biological. So, the only way you're going to be able to do that is to distill your water to get rid of all the chemical contaminants. So, let's talk about boiling the water. I just did a video with a stove on my YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on YouTube, on right here, I'll put a link up in the description of the video. Also, I'll put it in the description of the video on the podcasting platforms too, in the notes. But, if you're boiling your water at different altitudes, water boils differently. All right. And this guy was like, sure, come up here and do it for 9,000 feet and you'll never get that water boiling. Well, I've never been to 9,000 feet. I've been to 5,500 feet, camping and stuff like that. But, the best way to ensure that you've reached a temperature that will kill all the biological contaminants is to bring your water to a boil at 211.9 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's 99.97 degrees Celsius. So between sea level and 6,500 feet elevation, that temperature is 212 degrees, all right, to bring your water to a boil. And you could boil your water for at least 1 minute and everything's done. And the reason why is because the water boils at 212, right? All biological contaminants are killed at 165. So that's like going to a restaurant and all your food is cooked to a certain temperature. Your chicken is cooked to 165, 170. Your beef is cooked to 155. Your pork is cooked to 155. Hamburger meat is cooked to 165. Fish and frogs and alligators cooked to 145 to kill certain biological contaminants that's inside that food. That's why we cook our food, is so we don't get sick from biological contaminants or pathogens. And so once you're above 6,500 feet in elevation, you want to boil your water because the boiling temperature goes down. So once you get above a certain height, which is 6,500 feet, and go up or higher, you're probably going to end up using propane stoves or anything like that. You're going to boil your water for at least 3 minutes. So to be safe, no matter what your elevation is, boil your water for 3 to 4 minutes, something like that. And that way you can make sure that there is no biological contaminants. There's still going to be chemicals. If there's any chemicals in that water, you're still going to have the chemicals in there if you boil it. All right. So boiling your water will not remove chemical contaminants. Some will evaporate out, but the majority will not. So to remove them, you have to distill the water. This process involves bringing the water to a boil, capturing the steam, and collecting the condensation as it cools and turns back into water. And that's what we just talked about. So Corporal's Corner did a video a while back that on YouTube that it takes 45 minutes for freshly boiled water to cool. But it is possible, and he showed that. I demonstrated it in this book, talked about it in this book, but he also demonstrated it in video that, it takes 45 minutes for freshly boiled water to cool. However, you can cut that time in half by taking the water out off of the fire and putting it back into the water source where you collected the water. Being careful not to knock it over or overfill, letting it cross-contaminate again. But you can cut that time in half. And so, what's 20 some odd minutes, 20 minutes for it to be as cold as what you got it out of. That's pretty good. So when boiling your water straight out of the river or lake, and you're not filtering it or anything like that, you're boiling that water. A lot of people complain of it tasting nasty. And they're like, oh my God, this tastes horrible. To combat that, you just get you one of those little drink packets of Crystal Light or something like that and dump it in there and you're good to go. And it'll change the flavor. Now, I'll use those routinely with filtered water because when you get out there, you drinking water, because that's all I drink anyway. And every once in a while, I want something to really, sweeten things up, something to be different, But I got to watch out because, the lemonade packets, when you get out there, they give me indigestion. And once I get indigestion, it's over with. I'm miserable. So, but that's it. On that. But, one of the most important aspects since I've got started this podcast, and since I started, the first page of this book, one of the most important things to have with you besides your trusty but not rusty knife is a metal container. If you go into the woods without a metal container and you get stranded in the woods, it's going to make your stay miserable because you're going to have to go through different ways to formulate your water. But to render your water safe to drink. And, there are ways you could do it. You could burn this. You can burn a bowl out of a log and boil rocks and throw it in there. And you could do all these different things, but just bring a metal container with you and you don't have to worry about it. The basis of this book is not like survival. It does cover some of the survival aspects, granted. It covers some of the bases and, but the majority of it is bushcraft camping. You're going camping and, so a lot of the stuff you're bringing with you, you're primitive camping in the woods, you've got your bag, your backpack filled up and you're heading out, you're going to a certain place in the woods and you're going to camp out for several days, week, couple weeks, whatever floats your boat. At that point, once you get out there for that long and you start, your stuff, your gear, the items that you brought with you is going to start to deplete, especially the food, stuff like that. So you're going to be practicing bushcraft, you're going to start, and I routinely do it all the time. I'll bring my backpack, I'll have, my shelter, I'll have my bedding, stuff like that. Then I'll have my cooking in my pots. I'll have a couple changes of clothes and then, a couple of days worth of food. And after that, I'm doing my own food, but I make everything that I want for my camping trip out there. So I'm practicing the bushcraft. So that's why the book's called Primitive Camping and Bushcraft, because you are actually going out on a primitive camping trip, but you're going to end up doing bushcraft. And, and not so much the survival, but you need to know some of the survival aspects in order to do the others. So it's kind of like layers, First, you got this layer right here, water, shelter, fire. Those three things right there is like your first layer. And then after that, you got food collection and, tools and comfort and stuff. And then trying to make traps and, stuff like that. And everything is layered on top of each other. So metal containers are something that are extremely important to have with you when you're in the woods because it makes your life easier. It really does. And I don't want to go out into the woods and suffer. I want to go out to the woods and enjoy why I went out into the woods. And that's to read my Bible and to enjoy God's great creation. And, it's evident that he's everywhere and in everything. So one of the aspects after you have a metal container is that you could boil water and then you could store that water and then keep boiling it, storing it, boiling it, storing it. So let's talk about water storage. Water collection bags are readily, is that even a word? Readily? But readily available, We got a readily available. And you can get them off of Amazon. You can get them. You can get some water collection stuff at Walmart. Now, there is a brand out there, Cooligan, Collegan, or something like that. They're a camping brand, and I bought a couple of them one time, and they were collapsible water jugs or something like that. And dude, I washed them out, I rinsed them out. And I filled them up with water and I put it in my boat and we headed to the campsite. And if I have a conveyance going somewhere, I'm going to bring as much stuff as I can because I don't feel like doing it when I'm out there. But, I filled up this jug and I got out there and I'm telling you, that water tasted horrible. It tasted just like that jug. It tasted like that plastic nasty. And I was just like, golly, get this away from me. But, water is going to taste like something. If you had something in a jug before, it's going to taste like it, So these water storage bags right here, they got them ones on Amazon you can order, or you can go down to Popeyes or some of these fast food restaurants to go, and you can get a gallon bag of your teas or your lemonades or blah, 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 whatever drinks that they serve. And you can reuse these bags. And I do the Popeyes bags. I'll get a gallon of the sweet tea or unsweet tea, and I will take those bags with me into the woods. And they are perfect reservoir bags. They're perfect for putting, storing water in. And so that's something that you would throw away, but you could reuse. And, it's great. It's great to reuse things. And I really like reusing things. One, you're cutting out on waste. Two, you're making something out of something that would have been garbage anyway. But, so water storage is important because you really want to be able to have enough water to, you don't have to have boiled or filtered or clean water to cook. You can use nasty water straight out of the river and cook with it, because you're going to boil that water anyway if you're cooking. But it's nice to have stored water. That way you can just have plenty of water to drink. And I usually take one of these bags with me, and I'll use a Grail GeoPress on wherever I'm going. And then whenever I get to where I'm going at camp, I'll fill that water bag up with either, I'll use my Grail to fill it up, or I'll boil the water and store it that way. But we'll get into the Grail GeoPress. That's the most amazing water filter there is. So, and we got other aspects, other things to talk about here too, but one of the last things I want to talk about, and it's just one of the little side notes here in the book, is water wicking, or wicking your water. And, wicking the water is you got this cup and it's full of your dirty water. You're going to put a bandana or some kind of cotton cloth in the water, and you're going to lay it over, and you're going to have another container down here, and it's going to siphon that water out of here all the way down and fill this jug up. Well, it's still going to have the nasty biological contaminants in there. This water is not going to be clean to drink. You still have to actually boil that water. All right. So that's how you wick your water. You can wick water from all kinds of things, and it'll be clean looking, it'll be clear, but it will not be safe. So next, we're going to get into pre-filtering our water, and we're going to use several ways to do that. Then we're going to get into the chemical disinfectant and move along to other water filter sources. So other ways to filtrate your water in the great outdoors. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you don't mind, whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on, if you would, just go ahead and rate it and leave a review, leave a comment. And if you're watching it on YouTube, leave a comment. Please leave a comment. Let me know, how's it working? Or do we need to reformat something to that effect? Let me know. I really care about your opinion. I really care about what you guys think. So in a couple of weeks, I am going to have the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft Blend Coffee is going to launch. That is going to be pretty cool, and I'll be showing videos about that as well. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I'll see you next time. God bless you.